Colin? All right, hello, welcome. Today is March 17th, 2003, and we are meeting as part of the online teaching interest group. And our special speaker today is Colin Cordell, and he is going to be speaking to us today about using Microsoft Power Automate. So thank you so much. My name is Katrina Tamura, and I'm the coordinator for the online teaching interest group. So if you're not a member, please join us. We have a Facebook page, and we also have a discussion board in the CATESOL membership area. So Colin, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you. And thank you so much again for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Trina. I appreciate it. So I've put in the chat the link to this website. I made a website because I think it helps really hold all the information together. Otherwise, it's easy to hear it once and forget. So this website's always live, so you can always come back to it. So it's really simple like that. So like Katrina said, I'm Colin Cordell. I'm an ESL teacher at Corona Norco Adult School. If you have the chance, feel free to fill out this welcome survey. Even if you're listening to this, as we say, asynchronously these days or afterwards, feel free to check it out because I'm going to talk about it throughout the time here today so that you can kind of see some of the things that Power Automate can do. So let's just start with the welcome here. So today we're going to be talking about Power Automate. We're going to talk about how Power Automate fits within the Microsoft suite, all the Microsoft programs. We're going to explain established flows, which will make sense once we get there, and we're going to ponder future possibilities. So I work on the tech team here at our adult school, and this is myself, my wife, my sister, and our best friend at an Adele concert. So it was an amazing night, probably one of the best in a couple of years. So, but that's just a little bit about myself. So again, if you have not taken the time to fill out that welcome survey, please do so. It's right here as well on this first page. And if you have already completed the survey, you should have gotten an email. So please check that. Whatever email you put in, as long as you put it in correctly, you should have seen that. And as you can see within the email, there are parts that have been inserted from your answers into the email. We're going to go over that much more throughout this presentation. So let's start off with what is Power Automate. So Power Automate is a program that was designed by Microsoft to fill in a couple of gaps that they had. As they filled in the gaps, they realized that there was opportunity for a lot more. So we're going to call Microsoft Power Automate PA a lot because Power Automate's kind of a mouthful. And so, as you know, Microsoft has some amazing and powerful programs, but they lack the connection that cloud-based programs like Google primarily has, like that's natural to them. And so to answer this problem, Microsoft developers created Power Automate. And there's just a ton here. We're going to barely scratch the surface of what Power Automate can do because it's really made to, you can make websites, apps, develop AI, artificial intelligence for your company. I mean, it can do a ton. And so because of that, we're just barely scratching the surface here. It's definitely, I have a friend describe it to me, a coworker who said that it's like kind of like standing in front of a black hole and you're just wanting to like put your finger in it. You don't really want to go much farther. And so to help us wade through the technical language of Power Automate, I want to give us some new vocabulary like any good English teacher would do. So PA has a really strong viewpoint towards business language. They talk a lot about leads, contacts, things like that, and that's not really a vocab we use in adult education. So I kind of tried to translate these things from my own brain to which kind of help them understand, my brain understand what's going on better. So when we see or hear about leads, we're going to think of potential students, okay? So we're going to think of potential students. When we hear about leads or capturing leads, we're seeing interested students, and then from there we can connect the sales timeline of like interested buyer, aka interested students. We can connect the timeline and viewpoint as getting a student from outside the office door to into the classroom. Okay, so as we talk about, as Power Automate, as you look in the website, kind of talks about certain things, you can look at it from that point of view. Okay, so that imagery has really helped me when the language gets very technical within Power Automate. So how does, oh, sorry, there's a couple of other vocab words. Flow here is the entire process. So a flow in Power Automate is from the trigger to the finished result of what you would like. It includes what pulls the trigger, the actual trigger, the response, and then the reaction. We're going to go over trigger and reaction when we go through our flow. So then how does Power Automate work? So Power Automate works through a trigger and the reaction of what you've asked someone to do. Okay, so in this case, it seems very similar to a light switch. And so it's when you turn on the light switch, you know what light is supposed to turn on. So that's kind of the idea of the trigger is turning the light switch on, and the reaction is the light coming on. And then as we go through the types of flows within Microsoft Power Automate, you're going to see that there are different flows, just like there are different types of light switches. And so when you're looking at Power Automate as a program, it's kind of like you're in a new house. If we can extend the light switch analogy. When you're in a new house, you're always constantly trying to go around like, what light turns on which light switch and which light switch turns on which light. And so that's really what it's a lot of trial and error, trying to figure out which flows and triggers work best together to produce the result that you want. So again, the trigger is you flipping the light switch on, and the reaction is the light turning on. So please keep that in mind as we talk a lot about triggers and reaction. Now, Power Automate has created several different types of flows. And so we're going to go over those right now. First, coffee. So the first type of flow that we're going to talk about, and honestly, I think it's the most popular, is an automate cloud flow or automatic type cloud flow. It's right here, automated cloud flow. So this is the type of automation I think people normally think of where it's like it automatically does something. You decide what the trigger will be. Maybe it's a completion of a form, receiving an email, a file is uploaded, and from there, it does something for you, right? The next type is an instant cloud flow. This is actually a manual button, so it's instant in the fact that you press a button and it happens. The automation happens all at once. So let's say you have a form with 10 answers, and it would run all 10 at the push of a button. So maybe it's something that you're doing weekly or monthly that you need to run something, maybe saving all your emails as PDFs or what have you, that it would happen at a push of a button versus happening every single time you get an email. This is a system I think would work best for attendance, but that's kind of later in the presentation. So the next type of flow is a scheduled cloud flow. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It's a flow that happens on a schedule, daily, monthly, weekly. So in this case, it's automatic in that it happens without you having to press a button like instant cloud flow, but the scheduled one just happens automatically at certain times of the week. This would be great for reminders, things like that you want to happen every week, okay? Or every month, or maybe every quarter or something like that. And then we have a desktop flow. There's a couple of new ones actually that they put out. Describe it and design it, we're going to talk about later. A desktop flow and a process mining. I've never used process mining. It's not particularly helpful for the areas we're going to be looking at. And a desktop flow is simply something that happens on your desktop. Again, I've never really used this. I've wanted to get into it, but it's just a lot of time to put in, and I don't have that time. So desktop flows can do a lot. It's downloaded on your computer. It really works with the AI side of Power Automate, where you can like teach it to use your computer and do certain things. So if you click here, here, and here, then it will do that for you and save it. So yeah, a lot there. So then what does Power Automate look like? I have some screenshots here of different interfaces that we're going to be using. So there's the home page, which is here, kind of the normal thing you see. My flows page, which is where all of your created flows will live, shared, and the ones that you've created on your own. So there's that. Then you have create, which is where you're going to go to create a new flow, and then templates. So templates, there actually used to be a ton of education-based ones. And then I went back recently because I created on my own, so I'd never used it, but I went back to check for this presentation and they were all gone. So I don't know where Microsoft hid them. There was a section called templates, but now there is not. So I didn't edit this correctly. Dang it. So I think the biggest question that I found myself after finding out everything about Power Automate, after learning about it and playing around with it, huge headache at times, I was thinking like, why not Google? Like, why do we have to use Microsoft? It was an argument at my school at the time, and so I really had to sit down and think like, why are we not using Google? And in this case, Power Automate actually takes a step forward where Google really hasn't yet, and it's in terms of automation. Google has really limited automation. So in one sense, it's really easy. If you have a form, you can get all of your quizzes in an updated Excel sheet right in front of you. Like, you can't get that in Microsoft. You can download a new Excel sheet every single time, but it's not auto updated. You have to go to Power Automate to create that, right? But it stops there for Google. Whereas Power Automate will say, oh, do you only want an Excel sheet for these certain answers? Or do you only want to email people about these certain responses? And it can do that. So there's a lot more depth to Microsoft, even if it does take a lot farther, it's a lot harder to learn. So there's that con. There used to be no branching in Google Forms, and there's very little branching in Microsoft, but now they've really fixed that, thank God. So you can do branches in both, so it's not a con anymore. And of course, the pros of Google are that it's free, and that it's easier to use at times. So Google can be a lot easier. It's a lot user friendly. It's a much simpler interface, just in general, I think, compared to Microsoft. I think Microsoft is trying to fix that, but in general, it's just much more simple to use, especially for ESL students and things like that. But on the other side, your students aren't going to be seeing Power Automate, and the amount of things that you can create as you get into it makes life more user friendly and your school more user friendly often than Google can do. Because honestly, Power Automate is not a simple program and it is barely user friendly. It's not made to be user friendly. It's made as like a back end work that only a couple people are supposed to be using. So why not Google? Is just it's limited, even if it is free and easy. So it's something for you guys to think about as a school or as a teacher or administrator, wherever you are. How do you want to move forward? Because the con that got into Power Automate and Microsoft is you had to pay for it, and it's got to come out of your budget. So, yeah. So that's why not Google, and that kind of a basis of Power Automate. Any questions before we move on? No, it's like a lot of information out all at once. Okay, if you're just joining us, feel free to go to the homepage and fill out the welcome email. You'll get an automated email that kind of displays some of the things that Microsoft Power Automate can do. So let's keep going then. Great. I'm hoping everyone's tracking. So here are some, I want to kind of go over components of Power Automate and kind of different steps as we get closer to making our own here. at its core, Power Automate was really created to connect different programs and cause them to talk to each other. So that's what it does really well. So like one flow I've even seen, you can kind of see the Twitter icon here, is that they created a flow in Power Automate to collect all tweets from Twitter that mention a company, and they're made into a PDF and added into a shared drive. Okay. So that can be done in Power Automate. Like that's kind of the extent and power that you can see there. So some of the more basic programs that we're going to be using and talking about today that I think are most applicable to education are going to be Microsoft Forms, right? So just being able to collect information and do something with it. Microsoft Outlook, being able to manage emails, send emails, receive emails. Microsoft Excel, being able to organize information, have a place where all the information is held, that you would need for your school. And then Microsoft SharePoint, which we don't actually use, but it's very popular within Power Automate and has a lot of opportunities, which is simply a business-sized share drive. So you can share certain folders with certain people, and it's just like giant compared to your OneDrive, which is just for you. So those are the basic kind of starter Microsoft programs, I think. If you go on, there's tons of programs. They're even incorporating Google more into Microsoft Power Automate, which I think is kind of ironic. And then we have the different steps within a flow, which we're going to briefly mention now, but I'm going to talk more clearly, hopefully, on it when we go to Power Automate and create something. So the first step is deciding on a trigger. So what is causing or starting the flow? For our school, it's mostly a new response added to a form. So when a student fills out an interest form, or a student fills out a tech request help form, or a teacher, says that they need a transfer student, those submissions spark a response. And so then next, what you have to do after you decide on what's going to cause the flow is what you have to tell Power Automate. Okay, once you see this happen, you have to collect the information. And then you have to tell it what should it do next, what should it do afterwards with the information that's collected. You're going to want it to do something with it. Maybe that's where your response ID is. Okay, now we fill in all this information, make it accessible to Power Automate. And then you're going to be filling in whatever it is you want. Maybe it's an Excel sheet, maybe it's an email, maybe it's, I don't know. But the biggest part of this, and then it's worked, is when you can go through these 3 steps and you get to dynamic content. And dynamic content is content from information from within the trigger. In our case, we're going to be using a form that can be used to fill in other sections of the flow. So maybe it's, for example, someone's email as now the recipient's email address of a new email. So if you're creating interest, or if you're maybe wanting to know who's interested in this meeting, fill out this form. They put in their name, their email address, and their date of birth, and then it sends them an email with the information about the meeting because it has their email, puts that email in it, and then it sends it off. So you don't have to do anything. You've already created the back end. You tell them, fill this form out if you're interested, and it sends it right away. So yeah, any questions so far about this? Make sure I'm not skipping anything. So after the response and dynamic content, thank you, Carla. After the dynamic content and the response, and that's all figured out, you're going to need to tell it what it should do. Send an email, fill out a row in a table, things like that. And thankfully, Power Automate has its own internal check. It'll tell you if your flow isn't going to work, which is great because otherwise you would be like up a creek trying to figure out what on earth is wrong. And honestly, still feel like that. But let's go to the next page. So we're going to now go create a flow. We're going to do this in a kind of a roundabout way because first we're going to create a form. Then we're going to kind of just work step by step, okay? So we're going to use this if we're creating a form first. So no form, not a new quiz. I'm going to create a CASAS test confirmation. I've been dying for our school to use these. They won't, but it's fine. So CASAS test taken, right? Because we have like students who come in to take tests, and then the teachers don't know all the time, you know, what student came in, things like that, right? So here you can put like, what is the student's name? Right, so then I put in their name, student's ID number, and you know, what type of test was it in, pre-test, the post-test, or maybe it was like a gain attempt, right? So they have their pre and post, but now they're trying to get a gain. And then what is the teacher's email? Now, if this was going to be something that I would put in my own school, actually on our forms, we'll input every single teacher's email. That way they just click and choose the email and it'll automatically send off. But in this case, I don't have permission to show those emails, so we're just going to use this one. What is the teacher's email? This is a very simple form, right? So what you can also do is create an Excel sheet with dynamic content or the conditional formatting at the top. I don't know how to do that. My coworker, Christina Hyatt, bless her heart, I swear has told me like a million times how to do it, and each time I forget. So I'm like, oopsies. Okay, so by filling out this form, I'm creating an Excel sheet that I can then use to upload to OneDrive, which I'm going to do right now. And then, so let's go back here. Sorry, my share screen's in the way. So what I've done, let me kind of verbalize what I'm doing. So I filled out the form that I created. What it does is it gives me an Excel sheet that I can then upload to OneDrive. I want to do this, which I'll show you in a second, because it's going to allow me to have something that's already created and I don't have to worry about creating an Excel sheet, making sure it all works. It's already done for me, and I can make sure my form is correct, right? So we're kind of clicking off a couple things here. Is it CASAS? I had this problem the other day where I was really struggling to find the thing that I'd uploaded. What is it called? CASAS test taken. Gotta love that. Wait, let me try this one. Ah, there it is. Okay. Oof. Give me a heart attack. Okay. So now I have this Excel sheet and it's in my OneDrive. It needs to be there for this type of flow that we're going to work on, okay? So I have ID and start time, completion time, not really important. The email of the person completing it, also not important. But I do have also the name of the person, not important. So these are the ones that are important. We have the student's name, the student ID number, the type of CASAS test, and the teacher email. We need all that information to create our flow. Okay, so you're gonna go to Power Automate. And we're going to now set up a flow. We're going to set up a dual one where it's going to fill in the form or the Excel sheet and send an email. Okay. So it's going to be an automated cloud flow because I want it to be done every single time the form is filled out. I don't want it to wait. I don't want it to be once a week. I don't want anyone to click a button. I want it every time someone fills out a form, it happens. So I put the name of it because that's what's going to be saved as, and I chose that when a new response is submitted. Normally that's kind of at the top, as you saw, it's the first choice. It might not, you can kind of go through and choose one. So next I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a new form. It's going to go through your OneDrive. There is a way to use shared forms that are created by friends or coworkers. You can use those entering a custom value. I've done it. It's a bit clunky, but it can be done if maybe you didn't create the form, but you want to do something based off of it. All very possible. There it goes. So this is the form I created. It's not the Excel sheet. Okay, so I've decided what form I want to use. Thank you. And now I need to add a new step. So it knows what needs to be done. It knows that a response, it needs to be, the response needs to get response details. There's only going to be a few choices in this section because it knows that it needs to do a collection first. Okay, so again, I'm going to be choosing the form, which is going to be CASAS test taken, right? So we're in the same thing, CASAS test taken, CASAS test taken. And here, the only dynamic content available is the response ID. Okay. So now we're going to add a new step, okay? I'm going to do a condition because I want there to be, delete that, I don't want that one yet. So here, I'm going to do, let's do the Excel row first, okay? So this one's kind of tricky. You have to choose add a row into a table. It can't just be like, let me wait for that actually. It can't just be like change a row. It has to be add a row into a table if you want the information to be added as it happens. Okay. So we're going to choose our location, which is my OneDrive for my school. We're going to select the document. It's going to be inside my OneDrive. Again, if you want it to be added to someone else's, you can enter that through the custom value. Now we're going to select an Excel file through the file browse. And this is why it's helpful to have already created one and uploaded it, because now I don't have to create anything. Everything's already there. It's already very understandable of what's going on. And as it shows, all my dynamic content has already been uploaded. So I know that it's talking to the correct Excel sheet, okay? And then I need to choose the table, which will just be table 1, okay? This doesn't like me very much right now. Okay, let's try. Sometimes it, this is the fun of Power Automate. It doesn't always like to work for you. Then it has our dynamic content. Good. And so oh, you know what? Sometimes it really doesn't like this one. One second. Let's be sheet 1. Yeah, it can get kind of finicky with this table 1. I don't know why, but it can. There it goes. So I don't know. So that's why sometimes clicking, going back and forth on Power Automate is really helpful. So now we have all of the dynamic conditional format of this row available. So now we have to tell Power Automate what to fill in where. So I want, what's the student's name? I have that question, what's the student's name? It's going to input that there. Student's ID number, what type of CASAS test, then what is the teacher's email? So that is going to all be uploaded into the Excel sheet from the form. So the form gathers these responses, and now I can put it in here. I'm going to click save because I don't like accidentally deleting anything. Okay, so I can go to my flow checker up here, and it can tell me right now it doesn't see anything wrong. Okay, so that's a good sign. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a parallel branch, which you can do by clicking up here. And it means that at the same time, it will do certain things. Okay, so in this case, what I'm going to do is I just want it to send an email. So you just type in email up at the top in this search, and it says you can send an email. I prefer send an email V2. There are some fun things that V3 can do, but V2 is what I end up using the most. And so this is where we can start saying this is going to automatically send an email. It's going to automatically send an email when the form is completed. Okay, so my dynamic content is going to be what is the teacher's email. And then my subject, I can actually put the student's name, completed the CASAS test. And so then I can just put in like a very generic email like good morning or, hello, because you never know what time of day they're going to come in. Hello. Then you can put in parentheses their student ID. So I'm adding their student name, the student ID, and I can say has come in and taken a CASAS test. So that it'll put in here like a pretest CASAS test on, oh, I should have added what the date is. So I can go back and say like on a certain day. Or I can just say today because it's automatic email. There we go. Today, you should get their results within a week. Cheers, San Andreas CASAS team. We have one person, but team. Okay, so then here's where I'm at, right? So whenever someone fills out this form, they're going to, a row is going to be added into my Excel sheet, and an email is going to be sent to whoever a teacher is there on the other side, right? I like changing the font. It helps me feel better. So that's one option. Another option is we can insert a condition here. Okay. So we can say if something happens. Okay, so I can actually move this into here. Come on. There it goes. So now we're saying, okay, if something happens like this, then do this. If not, then do this. So I can say if the type of cost this has starts with pre, right? Then I want you to send an email that says has taken I can remove this, has taken a pre-test test today. Please make sure that you send them in for
All right, it looks like Colin, oh, there he is. Okay, he's coming back. Okay, there, you're back. Woo!
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It
What I get for
happens.
using school
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Let me reshare my screen here.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't know where I lost you guys, so I'll go back like 30 seconds. So because I decided that this email that you see on your screen is going to be sent if a certain answer starts with pre instead of post or gains, this email is going to be sent. Now you can choose if you want to send an, you can do the other email like I had previously where, okay, you've taken some type of test and, maybe there's a certain answer that you want. If, they've only taken a pretest, you need to know they need to do something. Or maybe it's like, I've done this before where for a transfer form, I can use the same form and create different flows from it. So I can say, okay, if this answer has ABE in it, then it's going to email this person and fill out this form. If the answer contains ESL, then it's going to do these certain things instead. So it's all based on one form, one link everyone's going to, and then you're scaffolding out the information to who actually needs it versus, oh, we all share this one Excel sheet, and like heaven forbid something happened to this one Excel sheet because then we're screwed, right? You can make everyone their own Excel sheet because it's just filling out several different forms all from the same form. Okay, so let's save this, okay, and let's see if it happens, okay? So it's saved, so I'm ready to go, and I can go back to test it manually with, oh, there should be a run, oh, okay. So now I'm gonna go back to my form, and I'm gonna fill it out again, okay, and we're gonna see if this worked. Okay, so oh, I got the email, it worked. Okay, and it works that fast. Like it's really instantaneous. It even times itself on Power Automate, okay? So I can go to back to my home page for this flow. So this is all the details about this one particular flow, okay? The flow name, the owner, when it was created, last modified, the type, all of these things, what programs it uses, and it'll tell me 18 seconds ago, it completed a flow in 3 seconds. So in 3 seconds, it added another, see, it added another row to my Excel sheet. And it emailed me. Let me pull that up real quick. Oh, there it goes. So I don't want to show everyone my email. Okay. Can we make this smaller? It's obnoxious. Okay, there we go. So now you can see it says, hello. So test, this was going to be the student's name completed. The cost is test. So hello, test completed. This was supposed to be the student's ID number. Has come in and taken a pre-test today. Please make sure you send them in for a post-test after completing 30 hours, right? And so it shows it comes from me in version 3, V3. You can sometimes get Power Automate to send emails from other people, kind of difficult. Or when you press reply, it replies to a different person that sent it, which is great if you have someone who's making all these things but they need to talk to other people. So yeah, so this flow worked, thank God. It's very rare for flows to work on the first time, honestly. I stuck with one that I knew I could do. So yeah, so that's how the flow works. And so if we go back to edit, we're gonna see everything, and you can even do like a flow checker or let me see if I can do a test. The tests are fun because it will show you on the screen like how fast everything happens. So your flow is running. So see 0 seconds, 0 seconds, 1 second to add a row and another 0 seconds technically to send an email, and I already got the email. So really quick, which is great that you can kind of see because I actually had a flow take like 5 minutes the other day. And then you can kind of see, okay, what's wrong with the internet or my programming or what needs to be fixed to make sure that they're not taking long. Most flows don't take longer than, um, 5 or 6 seconds. These all take 6 seconds. So anything longer than a minute, average run duration, anything longer than a minute is a problem, honestly. You've got to look at. So, any questions about this process or practice?
I
All
think
right.
it seems like a really great way to improve communication between and that in the time between when the student takes a test and then teachers actually hear about it with a gains report. Sometimes, we just don't know what's going on in the time in between. So we can't, encourage people to take a test or um, follow what has been going on as far as getting them in the door to take a test. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through. Thank you for saying that. That's why I'd love to use it. We're not there yet. And one of the things with any kind of new technology, my school has talked about this a lot in our different presentations that we've given, and just as a community of practice of waiting until there's 100% or as close to 100% buy-in as you're going to get before implementing something like this. We started really small. We came across Power Automate, myself and a coworker of mine who's our CTE coordinator, over spring break during COVID when we were trying to figure out like how to communicate better with each other because no one was able to go in and all of our paperwork couldn't be filled out, and you shouldn't be passing papers in between all these people like you normally do. And so we came to Power Automate trying to figure that out, and took a long time. We started with transfer forms for our programs of like if a student needed to be transferred, um, the coordinator fills out a form and a Microsoft form, and then the teacher gets emailed who's losing a student, the teacher gets emailed who's gaining a student, the student gets emailed about their new teacher with some encouragement to wait a couple days before contacting them. And then the office gets an email saying, hey, this person was transferred. We do the same with TOPS forms. We moved those online. So we've done like a very slow job at moving through trying to see what can be automated. And our most recent one that's kind of been the most exciting is interest forms from students and having those be automated when it comes to registration and things like that. Vera, I just saw your question from 1035. Sorry. Can Automate integrate Google Spreadsheet? I feel the answer is no, but I like to double check. I think it could. There, you can send emails through Gmail. So I think it just depends, like what you can use. But yeah, so I've never tried, but I would assume so. Yeah. Another common question is Power Automate free? And it was free, is free with the basic package, Microsoft Suite. So yeah, so I have some screenshots here. If you click on them, they become bigger because otherwise all of this is just a lot of squinting. This is the first part of the flow that was used for this presentation. So in this one, PA is adding a row to the table and each column is being filled in with the dynamic content from the initial form. And then the second condition, or the second step, is part of the flow which was used here to, at the top it is cited, ask the question in the form, do you like to travel? If the answer starts with a yes, all the people who like to travel get this email about where I traveled, what I want to do next, things like that. If they answered no, then they got kind of like caveated to this one, delineated to say, okay, they don't like to travel. What do you like to do in your free time? And I use that to create an email off of. Right. So here's two emails being sent using much of the similar information from the dynamic content, your email, your first and last name, which I think helps make people feel really personal. It's not just a generic email, hello, please come to school for registration on this date. It's like, hi, your first name. Thank you so much for being interested in fill in the blank. We appreciate you can be much more personal when you're being able to really input some of the information they've already given you, and they'll never know, which is great. How much is the membership or license, Carla? I have no idea. Our district, our K-12 district, pays for Microsoft, and we're kind of joined in with them, which I feel like is pretty common. But Microsoft, the basic suite for personal, I think is like 50 a year, something like that. I haven't looked in a while. Sorry. Um, yeah, sorry about that. So these two are kind of, we haven't talked about a lot, these two examples. I got permission from my coworkers who created these. This on the left is it's an old email, but it's one that we used when we were doing CTE Zoom orientations. And so they would choose like, I want this date for Zoom. So it would put that in the email, but the Zoom link never changed. And so you could choose a Zoom orientation date. And so they think they're getting this very curated personal email when in fact it's actually just a bulk email and they're inputting the correct information. So all I have to do here is go back and change the times that's available on the form. And so you're sending out the same email every time, and then every couple of weeks, whenever you do new whatever, you're able to change the date, and you're not having to rewrite everything. And my coworker Erica did a great job with links and hyperlinks and class schedules and device request forms. So everything that they would need or need help with is located here, which is great. And then here's one where my coworker Christina, she doesn't do parallel things. She does this back to back. I haven't quite figured this out. It usually gives me some trouble. But she has the form, put a row into a table, and then email us with that information, which is why it's in green and not this like blue-green color. And this is based off of a tech request help form. So every time a student or staff fills out a tech request help form, we get an email about it. It fills in the Excel sheet, and then I can go and check and see, okay, what do they need help with? How do I contact them? Things like that. So we're kind of coming to the end here, but further possibilities, I'd love to figure out how to get attendance emails from my class. I'm still trying to figure out how that would work, where you kind of just click a button for those who are absent. It sends an email like, hey, I missed you. Hope you're doing well. When you get back in class. Haven't quite figured that one out yet. Interested students lead. So this was a further possibility of when we first found Power Automate. It was our goal to get there, and we did achieve it after 2 to 3 years of just fine-tuning the process, figuring out how best to use it, and waiting for people to be comfortable with using so much technology. Like I said, buy-in, or as much buy-in as we can get from our coworkers is really, really important because we want them to feel that the technology is helping them and making their lives easier, not a burden to them, making their lives more difficult. And of course, there's practically unlimited possibilities with the AI learning procedures that are within Power Automate. One thing that Power Automate has added the last couple of years since we found out about it is self-guided training that I think is better than the self-guided training I went through when I first found it. And so I've linked those here, some of the ones I think that are most helpful should you need some review. And so these are on the website as well, just with introduction to everything, and then specifically Excel and email automation with Power Automate. And then in this case, especially with education, YouTube is your friend. Trying to figure out stuff for Power Automate. So that would be the steps I would take if you want further training or using this more in your schools or professional life. So yeah, that's it. Any questions for me?
Thank you so much, Colin, for sharing this with us. It's always important to be aware of the new tools that are out there and to become familiar with them in case we can use them. Right? So thank you so much for sharing that and some of the possibilities. I think your idea about the CASAS emails would really improve communication. I hope that you get that pushed through because it's kind of a no-brainer, right? That one's a good one. Good idea.
Thanks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much to Vera and to Carla and Marcia also for joining us. And if you would like to see this recording, we're going to share it with the CATISL YouTube channel. They have a catalog of professional development videos. So you can always refer to that collection in the future. Okay. Thank you. And I hope to see you next time for another online teaching interest group event. Colin, please, if you have any more ideas you'd like to share, please come back. Vera and Carla, if you've got some cool stuff to share, please reach out, let us know. That's what we're all about. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate